our PAX online panel. This is BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. There's room for all of us. And we're going to do a quick round of introductions and then walk through these topics together. Amanda,
am I introducing myself?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Hi, I'm Amanda Stevens. I've been working in esports and gaming as sort of a jack of all trades for 5 to 7 years now, depending on like what industry. I work as a diversity consultant, a journalist, a host, and a pundit. I'm currently working a lot with Trans Lifeline to help them get into streaming and make contacts with different esports orgs so they can do more charitable initiatives. And when I'm not doing that, I'm either representing any key or playing way too much Magic the Gathering.
Hey, I'm Christina Amaya. I am a founder of Latinx in Gaming. I also work at Team Liquid as the event strategist. I focus most of my time on Latinx in gaming initiatives, but also women's safety at conventions and events.
So hey everyone, I'm Jane Lopez. I'm the founder of Black Girl Gamers. It is an online platform and community that heightens Black women's voices for diversity and inclusion in gaming. We do workshops, events, content. I also consult as well. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
Hi guys, my name is Jimmy Wong. I'm an actor, host, as well as a content creator. I've been making stuff online for the past decade, and I've done a lot of work across the gaming spectrum with companies like Riot Games, Wizards of the Coast, CLG, and I'm currently a host and creative director over at Ven TV.
Hey, nice to meet everyone. I am Stephanie. I am the founder of one of UK's leading black gaming and entertainment companies called Saga. We specialize in gaming tournaments, gaming events. We also specialize in gaming comics and anime. And our mission is to champion diversity and inclusion. I also do a lot of D&I training, and I also am a content creator and streamer myself. And my thing is just about shifting and changing the culture of the gaming industry.
Hi everyone, I'm Santo, and I am a game designer, artist, as well as a co-director at Games Making Games. So as a game designer, I make games about my own culture, Guarani, indigeneity, and at Games Making Games, I help or co-direct the organization. So we're a nonprofit focused on supporting marginalized genders in the gaming industry, whether it's playing games or making them or critiquing them. We provide the tools and resources for them to realize their path and career in the game industry.
That's awesome. Thank you everybody for your introductions. Let's go ahead and talk about some topics here. Let's start out with intersectionality. Intersectionality operates as both the observance and analysis of power imbalances, and the tool by which those power imbalances could be eliminated altogether. Does somebody hear that audio? Sorry.
Yeah, I hear it.
Gotcha. Do you know where it's coming from?
No. Oh, well, whatever. So basically, let's go back to it. Topic 1, intersectionality. Intersectionality operates as both the observance and analysis of power imbalances, and the tool by which those power imbalances could be eliminated altogether. So I guess the first question here I have for the group, and feel free to answer in whatever order, what is intersectionality to you?
I guess I can start. So to me, intersectionality is looking at all the different factors that come into play when looking at somebody's background or looking at the way that a certain group interacts with anything. So in the sense of gaming, as a diversity consultant that works with like esports teams, sometimes look at the question, why isn't X marginalized group more represented in esports? And so, the simple answers they always want to hear is like, oh, well, they just don't play X game, right? That's not necessarily always the case. There's a lot of factors like finances, opportunity, crime, all these different things that come into play, access that sort of build up to a complex problem, right? Intersectionality that's why there's the word inter. It's because there are different disciplines that work together in order to both create advantages and disadvantages.
That's awesome.
Anyone want to go next, or can I go?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think it's definitely everything Amanda said regarding just awareness of bringing those intersections to the surface. As someone who's a community leader and community manager, it's always unlearning things and also being aware of the new intersections that you may meet. Just being one person and then meeting someone else is always key to understand those intersectionalities and not just have them, but understand them. And I think that's the main thing in the gaming industry. There's a lot of, we want diverse people, we want person from X group, but do you understand them? Do you actually speak to these people within your community? Do you actually engage with them? And how do you engage with them? Is it tokenization? So I think for me, intersectionality brings a level of authenticity and genuine interest in that person and that demographic. Because I think if you just do it in terms of, okay, we've got this person that ticks 2 to 3 boxes, it's not really genuine intersectionality. It's just another token way of trying to show that you're more aware of diversity, but you're not actually doing the work behind it. And it's not easy. I'm not going to say it is. What I do say is that, hold on, I'm gonna wait for that to pass. It's not easy. I don't say it is, but it's always about just continuously learning and unlearning biases and preconceived boxes that you have in your head about who somebody can be.
Yeah, I can go next. When it comes to intersectionality, that's something that I think about pretty much every day, not just like in organizational work, but just in my everyday life, like thinking about the ways in which, like for me personally, the way my gender and my race cross over and like the kind of marginalizations that I faced at that intersection. And then using that kind of lived experience to see like how we can support our most vulnerable communities here in the game industry, at least within Toronto. So within Dames Making Games, we always make sure to prioritize people that are like at that intersection and see like how does that affect them creatively, like what barriers do they face because of that intersection, and how can we bring a more holistic experience to them when it comes to the games industry. Because one of the things I really love about DMG is that we want to foster creativity with our members, and that we don't want them necessarily to take a workshop and then do that thing and get into the industry that way. Like we want them to find their own path, and like if that path is getting into the industry, then that's great. If it's maybe even going to like film or art or like photography or another kind of stream, then like we'll also support them that way. So it's definitely just like letting our members find their own path, and how does that overlap with games at large, or how does that overlap with their own lived experience?
I definitely agree. Going off the back of everyone else, intersectionality for me it's an ongoing journey, an ongoing process, because you do come across different people from different walks of life. Essentially, the games industry is very, very, diverse, and there is so many different groups. And I think the problem is a lot of the times people feel like they can just walk into it without actually understanding and taking the time to educate themselves, because not everyone has all the answers. And I think going into that, it's really good to understand, how each type of circle operates in order for there to be some sort of change. So, with everything I've been doing over the past 5 years, it has allowed me to educate myself, because although my main focal point is the Black and ethnic minority, there's other groups, like there's the LGBT community, there's other different types of groups that all also fall into my mission and what I'm doing. And it's very important to always ensure that you're always including them, but you take time when you're including them. You have to understand their journey, understand where they're at, so you can assist and help without it feeling like it's too forced.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. For me, something that's really important is the ability to be vulnerable in intersectionality, because sometimes you may see things a certain way and then somebody comes along and is like, you forgot about us, or you forgot to mention this. And rather than reacting negatively, I think it's super important to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, or oh, I'm learning. there's so many times that I've put something out there or done something for my community, and I forgot a certain group or a certain thought there, and it's important to learn. And that's one of the most important parts about intersectionality, is being able to be vulnerable, being able to be empathetic, and being able to learn together. So I guess the next question then is, like, what is a dream state of intersectionality for you? Like, what do you see as kind of this perfect state of intersectionality in the gaming space?
I don't think nothing is perfect, because with any industry you're into, there's always something that I guess not necessarily goes wrong, but something that you're continuing to learn. But I think we are at the position now, especially within the games industry, with how much it is lucratively and with how much it has evolved, that we are at the point where things shouldn't be having to not be perfect, but things should be more evolved at a quicker rate. There should be more groups and more initiatives that should have been done years ago, but we're still at this constant battle because, the higher ups and the execs don't want to, take keen and don't want to take heed into actually providing these kind of opportunities. So, I think it's a thing where there won't be a such thing as perfect, but there will be an ongoing progress of evolving and trying to make things a lot better with, I guess, the help of, the games studios and companies trying to come together and listen to the communities, listen to, platforms who are creating their own, initiatives because they didn't see anything that reflected them. So I think it's a thing of now trying to, speed up the process a bit more.
I think just going off of what Steph said, for me, the dream state of intersectionality isn't necessarily everyone in one pot. I feel like safe spaces are needed. I feel like safe spaces and cultural spaces are valued and should still be applicable in the future. That's why people exist in tribes and have cultures. That's the nature of human beings. What I do want to see is equal equity in terms of the industry spread across those groups. And I think that's the key. I think there's a mismatch in power dynamic, there's a mismatch in equity, which leaves us starting our own, like Steph said, our own initiatives to then try and grab that equity back. And we've all done that in our own way. But I think it's unnecessary for us to still within 5 years still be trying to grab that equity. Like, it's about time we are supposed to have equal say as a people, maybe not me, but as a people, in terms of who I represent, Black women, or who Amanda represents, trans Black women, or who Steph represents, or Jimmy represents, or Santa, or Christina. Like, everyone should have that equal equity in the industry. And I think that's the problem. We're still being denied that. No matter how much we build, it's still very, very slow to get that equal equity, to have an input in how the industry looks, how events go, how games are designed, how culture is represented, especially when I see native culture being taken and just used in games for random crap. Sorry, can I swear? Yep. Okay, I can swear. So just checking. But yeah, I think it's all about the equity and that ability to have influence. And I think that's where the missing piece is right now. And that's the dream state for me.
Looking at the industry and studying all of the controversy that's happened recently, I think the dream state of intersectionality is something that we've been working towards slowly as we find more representation within the actual game companies that make the games. And then I think like it's really important to weigh all the different aspects of gaming to the correct percentage of how much they represent the overall gaming space. A lot of people usually treat esports as this thing that is actually more important than it actually is, when it takes up a much, much lower percentage because there just aren't that many pro gamers compared to the number of casual gamers out there that engage with gaming on the day-to-day basis. So for me, a dream state of intersectionality is something that pervades the gaming industry from the bottom all the way to the top. So all the way from the brand new people coming into the space that feel empowered to make games that may not be your stereotypical like snapshot of what a game developer looks like, all the way to the CEOs of the biggest companies like the Riot Games and the Wizards and the Blizzards of the of the world, to see that there's a good amount of representation there so that they can make sure that the decisions made by each of their developers or whatever they do down the line is going to reflect a good culture or whatever it is. They're not misappropriating or taking someone else's culture or thing and using it for their game as a just whatever. So I think like intersectionality for me is it's really important just to make sure that there's good representation at the places where people begin to have power or already have power.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. And just to add on to that, I think for me, thinking personally and also organizationally, like a dream state of intersectionality would be that people of marginalized backgrounds and communities don't have to look to companies anymore to support themselves, in the sense that they can have their own tools and resources in order to make what they want, which is something that we work. I can definitely dig more into it, I think, in the later slides, but that's definitely something I personally work on and that I work on with DMG, that we want to give people the resources so that they can be self-sufficient and so that they don't have to keep going into abusive industries and toxic work environments to work on something that they love. We want them to be self-sufficient, which is something very challenging, especially when we struggle to get those resources in the first place. So I think definitely like something we're working towards that is, I think my kind of dream state is that we just become self-sufficient so we don't have to rely on these companies anymore for support, and we can just support ourselves, which is like definitely like a big, a very big challenge.
I agree with that, Santo. And actually, like from that, visibility for other people to find us is so huge to me. Like so many times I see a Latinx person tweeting or asking like, where's our community? Where's our people? And I wish that there was more visibility for all of our communities, so people entering the industry or people that feel alone can find us, right? Like can find a community or a culture that fits them that they've been missing this whole time. And some people struggle alone in that state. So my dream state is visibility and like you said, accessibility. And I think everybody made such great points here that there's so much more work to be done. And I agree that it won't be perfect, but I'm, hopeful for the future. With that said, do you think people misinterpret intersectionality, and how so?
I think one of the things that comes across a lot in my line of work is like two-pronged. I think people, Jay used the term safe space. I think a lot of people don't understand what that necessarily means. They think that like it's just like a place where you get like protected and covered in wool, and and like people don't challenge you or anything, and you can't grow in a safe space, when like that's 100% not what a safe space is. A safe space is a place where you can be challenged, but it's done in a way where everybody's respecting each other, and that people aren't going to get talked over, and there's not going to be a lot of some of these things that we know happens when we try to have discourse in like the wider space. But we know that like inside a safe space, like discourse can be facilitated in a way that's like healthy and safe and reassuring, and you can grow. I think that's the first thing that I noticed that a lot of people don't understand. I think the other thing that people don't understand is that when they engage in diversity initiatives and they're trying to bring the equity that we've all been talking about to gaming, they think that they only can do these like big flashy things, right? We see a lot of these orgs say, we're gonna donate a bunch of computers or something, right? And they're like, all right, I did that, and like I can just dip now. And a great example that I've been giving esports orgs that I've been working with is like, look at Snoop Dogg, right? He started the football league the youth league that he does, and he's done that like year in and year out, right? Equipment, mentorship, getting these kids, games, helping them get scholarships, all these different things. Like that's a project that takes time and dedication, and you're not going to see some like huge impact, the first year, right? But like down the line, these kids, a large number of these kids get to go to college for the first time in their family. A lot of these kids, some of them have made it to the NFL. A lot of these kids, they stay out of trouble, right? And like the thing that I think people don't realize often is that the way that you can bring equity can't be done in these like flash in the pan, it's Black History Month, so let's do something for Black History Month, right? Or it's Pride, right? Let's change our team logo for a month and like we'll do a co-stream, right? Like that's just not how it works. And I think that that's something that a lot of people misinterpret, is that they think they can do they overestimate what they can do in small gestures, right? And like these big, Pride Month events or Black History Month, and it's something that you need to be dedicated to, sustainably year round and year after year.
Yeah, Amanda really touched on the really key important factors as to why a lot of people misinterpret this, because a lot of companies only touch the surface level of what actually needs to be done. A lot of companies only do things for the short term, or they're only doing it for a PR stunt, or they're only doing it for the now and not for the later. And in terms of like everything that's gone on in regards to, for instance, the whole situation that happened with not Black History Month, with Black Lives Matter, and how it not only just impacted the US but globally. And yes, it looked nice or dandy with a lot of companies, bringing in the solidarity with the PR, statements. But you now see a lot of the companies have gone quiet. They're not making the stances. They're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, or doing what they said they were going to be doing from the jump. It's not just putting in money now, because money doesn't last forever. There needs to be a long-term sustainable method and initiative and effort to keep the long-term initiatives and the long-term platforms, the long-term organizations that you promise to be going. And again, another misrepresentation is that creating the safe spaces isn't just making something solely, I guess, Black or solely for the LGBT community. It's about people understanding that, look, we have a group here, we have like a community here that are just like you, but unfortunately with the way the industry is, we've had to now put ourselves in one corner to now solidify ourselves. So when companies and industries do come, it's a thing where, they recognize us, which it shouldn't be the case. And I think it's really important to keep it alive, to keep the flame going, because unfortunately we are forgotten. The end of the year will come, Black History Month will come, Pride Month will come again, and then all of a sudden everything's forgotten again. And it has to be permanent changes for like permanent solutions. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. And the only thing that I would add in terms of like the way intersectionality gets misinterpreted, it's definitely similar to like the PR stuff. It's when diversity and inclusion initiatives by bigger companies are like misguided in their intent. So like one common strategy that I've seen a lot of D&I departments do for bigger companies is that, they promise that, out of 3 candidates, 1 candidate will be a woman and 1 candidate will be racialized, but that doesn't take into account intersectionality. Where does that leave, women of color at? And like, where does that leave Black women at? And where does that leave like trans people of color at? Like, that's not being taken into consideration with those strategies. And it's like they want to improve, but they are not even kind of seeing the bigger picture, like of how they are actually going to execute that and what the results are going to be. And like, what's the guarantee that a diverse person will actually be hired, or will they just make it to the finish line and not actually get the position or get the role or get the opportunity? So definitely some kind of those like more technical like plans that are visualized without actually really seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, for me, one of the misinterpretations is interchangeability. People think that because I'm a POC, that I can speak for other POCs and speak for people of certain, different backgrounds. And so many times I've been asked to look at something as a woman for like, transgendered sort of thoughts. And I'm like, I honestly think that this is like not fair to transgendered women. And I also don't think it's fair to like assume that I would know all of that. I also have that happen to me as a Latinx woman for like, can you tell me if a Mexican person would like this? And I'm like, that's maybe, I have no idea if like that is something that they would really like. I really wish that people would either A, do their research separately and not ask that emotional labor of their, POC employees, or B, like, ask somebody of that actual, gender or of that background, and not just assume that that one POC person is where you go to for all the answers. That's for me a big misinterpretation. So with that said, I'll move on topics, unless anyone has anything else. Cool. So next topic, BIPOC in gaming. So what tools can be used to help create an even playing field in gaming?
Oh, okay, I'll start then. I think there's several ways, because I talk about this to the community quite a bit. The first, I always say, find yourself a community. I think having a community of people who are trying to achieve the same thing like you, and you can link up with those people, you can create content with those people, you can plan your visibility, you can do all of those things within a community, and you can find a mentor, which is a really great thing. I tell people, if you're doing content creation and you're passionate about it, why would you not treat it as any other job where people get mentors and get ideas and content and stuff like that? So I think if you're a content creator, that's the main thing. If you are someone like us creating an org and you want to again gain that equity, I always say a big mouth is a great thing to have. Like, you have to be very, very comfortable with being loud and being strong about it. And that's how I've got where I am today. And I really don't care who don't like me for it, because at the end of the day, it's not like I'm telling a lie. I'm not like where I was the first year of BGG is not the same place I am now, and it took a lot of growth to get there. But at the same time, I wasn't wrong in what I was saying. I just understand now more the different ways to navigate it, and I still have a big mouth. And I feel like if you're creating these organizations to gain equity in the gaming company, too many people have assimilated for way too long and buddied up to developers and buddied up to gaming companies, giving them that kind of faux intersectionality in order to get closer to them to get the coin. Sometimes you just have to turn that down and actually create an even playing field by rejecting what they offer you at first. Because if you just accept what they think is right, the thing doesn't change, which is why I feel like sometimes we're still where we are, because a lot of people who said they want to change actually just wanted to be closer to the developers or closer to the companies.
I think something Jay said is really important. And that's not just finding a mentor, but also like talking to your industry peers. So like, I'm pretty big on telling people what company is giving me for a contract. I obviously don't tweet it out because like that can be a little sketchy because of contracts and NDAs. But like, for example, I'm going to be doing articles for a company coming up to talk about like diversity in the FGC. And I immediately start talking to other people who have written for that company. Like, hey, this is what they're paying me. Like, what are you getting? Like, what is that bag that they're handing out to you? Because like, I think one of the biggest problems that we have in the gaming industry, like you look at it when you like go on websites like Hitmarker and whatnot to look at jobs, like they don't talk about like how much people get paid, right? And that's like so different than any other industry I work with. And so I know for a fact that like pay disparity in esports journalists across like ethnicities is kind of a problem. And I don't think it's necessarily like super insidious, like intentionally, but like it's definitely a thing. And I've definitely started talking to more people about how important it is that we all know how much everybody's getting. Not so that we can be like, oh man, look at this guy, you know, he's making so much and she's making so much. It's more about, okay, well, if we know that all the feature writers at these websites are getting X, then like, why aren't we getting it too, right? You know, I think and like we're seeing it, what was it? Activision, like their employees started talking about that. Is that who it is? Yeah. So that's one of the reasons, like I had already started like a private Google spreadsheet about all the different rates I've been paid at different places. And now I'm just sharing it with people because I think it's really important that everybody knows that there's like value in like the stuff that we do, because like these companies, they don't want you to tell people that. That's why they're not posted in the job postings.
Yeah.
And it's to keep people, it's like, oh, well, like maybe this person will take this much. And it's like, no, none of that no more.
I think that's so good that you're doing that, because again, nobody wants that transparency, which is, it's funny you even said that, because I have an event coming up. By the time this is out, probably the event would have been done anyways, and it's called Saving for the Next Gen, and it's mixing the whole gaming and finance like assets to it, because gaming is really expensive. The games industry is a very lucrative company. Nobody who works in the game industry is kind of like transparent about how much they're getting paid, or you know, how to secure the bag, because for example, a content creator can be getting X amount while you can be getting as little as like shillings. And I think with the event that I'm doing, it's allowing people to see that, look, there's so many ways that you can actually maximize how you have a better experience within the games industry, within gaming, and just helping each other out. And in regards to like going back to the question of what you're doing to help in terms of the gaming industry, myself and Jay, we co-created a platform called Gamer Girls Night In, and that essentially mixed gaming, beauty, and fashion, but that allowed women, non-binary, the LGBT community to meet and network with each other, and meet other people from the other industry, because again, a lot of women don't really see each other in the industry, and they're not able to. One second. Motorbike. So, so, so people are not allowed to. It's like this industry has this kind of cliquey aspect to it,
Yeah,
and people don't want to help each other for one reason or the other. They want to one up each other, or they want to help you, but they don't want you to do better than them. So for us creating our spaces, Black Girl Gamers, Nay Saga, Gamer Girls Night In, Latinx in gaming, like we're able to kind of connect with one each other and help be honest with each other. Like, okay, you're making this amount at Ubisoft. Okay, well, this is how much I made last year. This is how much you should be, and I feel like doing these events that we do, doing these workshops that we do, doing these inclusive events that we do allows people to kind of mesh and help one another, see each other as equals, because we're not helping each other by keeping things to ourselves. 100%. So I think it's really, really important to try and be as transparent as possible, because we can all win. There's enough bread for everyone to eat. So why not do these things, do these initiatives, and do these things to help one another?
Now, I just want to quickly follow off of that. I think one area where the playing field needs to be really balanced is in content creators and when they work with companies, and how much they get paid. Just obviously, Steph and I have a really great relationship, but I know a lot of my content creators within BGG come to me because the company's offered them something for no fee. And I'm like, it's your time, it's your money, and it's your platform. You should charge. And they always come to me, Jay, I don't know how much I should charge. And because there's not lack of transparency, and there's that lack of care when it comes to gaming content creators as well, that you should be grateful that they gave you a free game. That's not sponsorship, that's a gifting. And there's this whole misunderstanding of how, and I think it is partly because of the way the industry is, it's quite sometimes haphazard in terms of contracts and all that stuff. There's a lot that needs to be structured for people to even have an even playing field, just as content creators, let alone as employees who should be unionized and stuff like that. There's a lot of work to be done, I think.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and especially going off like what Amanda said about pay. That's also something very important when it comes to independent developers who want to get funding from publishers. That's also like a kind of like big mystery of like how much you should ask a publisher, like how much money should you budget. And definitely in that sense, like I have, I've created a very like trustworthy circle of friends who, have spoken to publishers before, who have gotten funding, and who I can go up to and, hey, like I'm thinking of pitching to this publisher, but how much should I go for, and like how much do they offer you? And obviously those are like very, very kind of like NDA questions, and it'll be up to the person to, if they're able to disclose it or not. But generally, like if you can have that circle of trust, like they will confide that information with you so that to help you get ahead. And especially with publishers, like obviously I'm not going to specify, but there has been a history of like publishers giving more money to white developers and then everyone else getting much less, like maybe half or even a quarter of what they get. And I think that kind of transparency with publishing is also like really important, especially when you're trying to, get yourself started as a studio or as an independent developer, that, you should be getting just as much money as, the other developers are getting.
I've done a little bit of adventuring into the corporate world now as well, and the number of things that you just don't get taught in the same way that like no one teaches you how to do your taxes in high school is one of those things where I think it's like it has the feeling of insiders club, but it's not purposeful a lot of times. Oftentimes it's just like, hey, we've been in this industry for so long, we know that you can go to HR and ask what the top end of your pay band is, because that's what HR has to tell you. They know the things you can ask for certain parts of the division to tell you these things. And a lot of times that information just will never get passed on unless someone is loud about it, asks a question, or even just knows which questions to ask. So I think when it comes to evening playing fields, a lot of it is just like making sure that the people who have been marginalized or the people that are going into a situation that is new for them know that they have other resources to reach out to. Maybe there's an organization out there that can help explain the basics of like a corporate structure and atmosphere so that people don't get lost in that when they get there, or they understand, like, oh, when I'm in here, these are the things I can do and should be doing, and these are the things I shouldn't be doing, and understanding where they can get their sort of like those small edges. Just because a lot of the times you see so many people get lost in these larger structures because they either feel like, oh, well, I'm here, I should be grateful for this opportunity, and that's as far as I'm going to take it. But there are people all the time taking advantage of the situation in ways that are completely by the rules, by the book. But just because other people are newer to that system, they don't understand how it works. So I think being able to create an even playing field means that we have good communication across the board, especially for people that are newer entrants into this world.
Agreed with all these points. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, gotcha. Something I think is important from a corporate standpoint is hiring diversity and inclusion specialists, hiring diversity, inclusion, and consultants, and then also working closely with groups that literally exist for diversity inclusion purposes, and giving them funding and having them look into things for you. Like there's so many companies that are huge companies like the Ubisoft, the Riot Games, etc. And they could really benefit from having people who are specialized, who have studied, who have learned this, who it's literally their job. And so I do see a lot of them, especially after the month of June with, Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement, making those efforts to do a little bit more. But I agree with the sentiment that was said earlier on in the conversation that it's a little bit too, we're really far behind in where we should be on these things. So for me, bringing those people more to light, giving them more visibility, that's the best tool we can provide right now. So with that said, what are some spaces that you feel don't get enough attention?
I think trans and non-binary people, I think, are still very lacking in representation. This is sort of a thing that when I was talking with Cloud9, I spoke to them before to make sure I could say these type of things. When I first started talking to them, one of the biggest things I said is that, when it comes around to Pride Month, everybody does just a rainbow flag, right? And that's not necessarily a flag that makes everyone feel included. So we went with the progressive flag for the logo this year. So it includes, the trans flag and the black and brown stripes, so that it signifies more groups within the Pride community, the LGBTQ community. And I think that's just like a thing that I think a lot of orgs are lacking, is they're like, oh, it's Pride, so like we throw up the rainbow, we're done, we're good. Yeah. We put up a rainbow, it's good. And then when you look at like the influencers they're working with that month, though, it's just all queer. It's just all either gay or lesbian people, which is, I get that bag. Everybody needs some shine. But like year in and year out, the only people I see a lot of these orgs working with are gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. And I don't really see a lot of these companies like looking to work with trans and non-binary people. And that's usually the first thing I say to them when I start consulting with them, is like, hey, there's other parts of this acronym. There's this T here. You guys could show us some love. It'd be cool. So I think that's a space. Also, I'll just say like fat people. Like I look at a lot of brands that are geared towards gamers, but they stop at like XL or they stop at large. And it's like, I don't know if you've looked at your demographic, but like we some thick people in the gaming community. And like when y'all stop women's wear at like a large, I love FlyQuest. They have their showcase greatness line, which is a bunch of women esports merch, but it stops at large. And I said something to their CEO. I was like, hey, like you're showcasing greatness, like fat women exist too, right? It's just a fact of life. And she was like, well, we're not a clothing brand. And it's like, yeah, but like if you're gonna go if you're gonna go some of the way, maybe you should just go all of the way. Like if you're trying to make a statement about showcasing greatness, then doesn't that mean showcasing that like greatness is across all body types? So those are the two groups, I guess, three groups I see a lot of lack of representation in gaming. You know, I don't see a lot of plus size like main characters in games. Usually they're, you know, relegated to like comic relief. And I definitely don't see myself in any game character that I've ever played.
I completely agree with everything Amanda said. Like if I can make t-shirts and it go up to 3XL, a whole brand can do that. And I find myself saying that a lot. Like if I can pay you, someone else can pay you, a brand can pay you. So it's always happening. I think I would add to another demographic that I see just within the community. Obviously the trans women, we have trans Black women in our community as well, but also the older women. We have women over 40, 50, 65 who love to game, and they are just always missed. And so we always make sure that they're involved in like the internal quizzes and stuff. I want to get them on the stream team. But it's just like, I always find that it's very ageist as well. Even myself, like becoming 30, I feel like, oh, am I too, like, I'm starting to feel like I'm too old to game. And like, it's a really, really weird feeling when gaming's so like old in terms of how long it's been out. Like gamers are coming all different ages. So that's just another area where I feel like brands and people just miss a lot in terms of the people who are consuming their product.
Yeah, totally agree. And for me, I think some of the spaces that I think of when it comes to like putting more focus on them, primarily two different ones. So first, it's like Indigenous game developers, just because Indigenous cultures, and that's like a really big umbrella, right? Because Indigenous cultures exist in every continent, basically, but primarily like North American and South American Indigenous cultures get appropriated a lot in Western media. And generally, like, there are never Indigenous people in that company or working on that game. And I think, especially like Indigenous people tend to be very disadvantaged when it comes to having access to those technologies that you need to make games, or like they live in very isolated communities, or like they need help accessing those resources. And one program that DMG ran in the past twice was we did a partnership with a local Indigenous arts organization here to basically do a long form program where we like would do workshops for Indigenous women to like learn how to make a game, or like learn how to use certain tools associated with game making. And then related to that, I think there's a great benefit in games organizations and companies partnering with companies that aren't inside the games industry. So like a lot of the partnerships that DMG has aren't with other games organizations. They're usually with other arts organizations. So we recently did a partnership with Black Women Film here in Toronto, where we are usually the ones that provide the resources, and then the arts organization we partner with, they decide how they want to use it and like what they want to do with it. So in this case, we partnered with Black Women Film, and they brought some other members in and, asked us for help when it came to resources like laptops, or like some members wanted to do stuff with VR, and we gave them the VR headsets, and then that way they got to explore games, but from like a film perspective. And I think there's a real value in like not only focusing on inside the industry, like looking outside. Like maybe there's people in film that want to do stuff with games or interactive media, or maybe there's people in photography or even music or other disciplines that want to make stuff that's adjacent to games. And how can we get them those resources so that they can contribute to an industry that has a lot of like it suffers a lot of homogeneity when it comes to like everything looking the same.
Awesome. And those are all really great points. Thank you. So what has been your biggest struggle for visibility in the gaming space?
Where do we begin?
Honestly.
There is a lot. Biggest struggle within the games industry. So for me, because I not only do like community management, I'm also a content creator. So I'm like in different intersections within the games industry, and being a Black person, a Black woman, we're like double underrepresented. And we could do something that's super amazing, but it won't be looked upon because of the way the system is set up within the games industry. There's a lot of systematic racism. We are often overlooked, especially because of how the culture's built. We, create the trends, we create so many different things, but it's just overlooked because of the way they want to see a particular type of person. You often see with a lot of content creators or a lot of people within the games industry, it's a very manufactured, pre-built look of how they want it, either a white male, or if they want to stretch to diversity, it's a white female, and they don't go like further than that. So it is a struggle because you can create a really great video and you can create something super amazing, but you're overlooked because you don't tick the boxes of what they deem as the perfect gaming content creator. A white female who's blonde and, or ginger, and she has the all the aesthetics, or a white male who is blonde or ginger. Do you understand? And it's like, it's a struggle because I don't like to have to work twice as hard to be where I am. I feel like everyone should be given the same opportunities and stuff, but unfortunately, because of the way things are set up, we have to work 10 times harder just to get a glimpse of success or a glimpse of the rewards, when it shouldn't have to be. And creating a community as well, it's my mission is to try and provide a lot of opportunities for the people within my community, but it's hard because being someone who's trying to create opportunities for myself to create the opportunities for the community, if I don't get anything, the community doesn't get anything. If I don't eat, the community doesn't eat. And it's a struggle because at the end of the day, I want to try and leave this legacy for people after me and for people to create their own things, but you can't do that when the community, the industries, the studios are not supporting you. And unfortunately, because of how big they are, we have to look for them for support. In an ideal world, I don't really want to look for anyone. I don't really even like having help, but because of the way it's set up, we have no choice but to look for the big companies that will pump the money in. But they won't do that because you're not built a certain way. Obviously that doesn't demotivate me to go hard and do what I do, but those are the struggles I normally face anyways. And I'm sure that's with a lot of other people who are community managers, or they're content creators, streamers, people who just work in the games industry, people who work behind the scenes. They probably don't even have a voice when you're creating video games and everything like that. You want more diversity, and your voice isn't heard because the execs are not able to relate to you because they don't look like you or anything like that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, this is an interesting question because it has some baggage when thinking about Indigenous people, because definitely like the misconception of like Indigenous people that went extinct, or like they're not around anymore, or like they're not in these spaces, which is obviously not true. And I think my biggest struggle personally is that whenever some game comes out that the mechanic is like colonialism, or it features Indigenous people, like generally when I look at it, I'm like, this definitely wasn't made by an Indigenous person. Like I don't even have to I do look at the team, right, to like confirm my suspicions, but even just looking at it, I can like always tell like there was not an Indigenous person in the room when this was made and written. And definitely my biggest struggle is also like sometimes convincing people that are on my side about their prejudices about Indigenous people. Like sometimes I'll get into arguments with people who are already like on my side. They're not like against Indigenous rights or anything, but a lot of times they will support games that have very racist depictions of Indigenous people, and I have to explain to them like, hey, this is why this is wrong, and this is why this game should be reworked, and here's what's wrong with it. And especially when like that people want to have like faith in this project or something like that, and it's like, hey, like nobody has really given Indigenous people a chance, but you're giving this project a chance. Like you should at least listen to our like apprehensions that we have about this type of content. And definitely that even within like some marginalized communities, like it's hard to get that visibility. And even like, and that's something I also struggle with in like Latinx spaces. Like sometimes people even in those spaces forget that Indigenous Latinx people exist, and that's kind of like what it's almost like double double visibility struggle. Like I have to also go into these marginalized spaces and also vouch for Indigenous people there, and it's definitely hard because it also comes with a lot of baggage. Like not only do we have to explain why things are racist, but we have to think about all the colonization and genocide that happened, and we have to kind of relive that trauma whenever we have to explain those things. And at one point, it's just so exhausting that like it does make me want to give up a lot of times, but I generally like kind of push through, and that's thanks to like I have a lot of Indigenous friends that do support me, and we support each other in holding people accountable. So it can definitely be like very, very, very tiring. Like I have been, like I think yesterday I had to like tweet out I have a reaction image from King of the Hill where it's like 500 years of colonization, yet this is what irritates me the most. Like that's pretty much what I feel like every week. Like I have to, if you go back to my Twitter and you see my photos, I tweet that image out like at least once a week because something happens that just like irritates me. But yeah, that's the struggle.
I think for me, it's kind of two-pronged. I don't think because okay, so just to give some context, Black Girl Gamers is my second platform that I've built. It's not the first. And so I took the tools from the other one, which is focused on like beauty, Black empowerment, and anti-colorism and stuff like that. So I've taken the skills from that and put it into BGG, which is why I won't say I've struggled for visibility because I wasn't checking for white visibility. I was checking for the Black visibility and hitting a nerve with some of the things that I think people hadn't thought about. And so thought it just grew and grew. And just because I had the skills from building another platform before, I knew how to build another one. I think my issue is what comes from that visibility from my own community, because a lot of content creators or people within the industry have been so content with assimilating for a very long time. When someone comes over and shakes the boat and is very pro-Black and is very like, nah, you're not, like you get a lot of criticism both in front of people and behind your back. And I think that's been one of my struggles because as much as I'm learning, I'm also very determined into making a change. And I think sometimes it can be really disarming and disencouraging, like I think the word's disencouraging, but like I lack encouragement just because I know there's people who look like me who I'm doing this for, but they're not rooting for me in that way, and that can be really upsetting at times. And I think the second aspect of the visibility that I've built with BGG is that a lot of companies or people will try and name drop you when you've never talked to them in your life. So like there will be people like mention me in an article like, yeah, and they speak with Black Girl Gamers. I'm like, and I have to speak to my team like, have you spoken to this person? And they're like, no. I would have told you. And I'm like, so who is this person? Why are they name dropping? And I think it's that PR that we're going back to before. Like they want to have that diversity light and that equity light, and they want to look like they're doing stuff without doing the work. And I think that's part of my struggle because how can you tell people to do the work when they feel like they've already done it? So it's very annoying, to say the least.
I mean, I work in an industry where I get to deal with people telling me to look less trans. And I've legit had people like straight up tell me. I mean, I talk about this on Twitter all the time because I care less now that I'm not a content creator, because that means I don't have to be as nice to teams as I used to be. But I've had players, coaches, I've had friends of players tell me that the reason that they like turned down interview requests is because like I'm trans and it made them feel uncomfortable. So like my desire to not fit like a cis normative look of like what a Black female should look like and be unapologetically trans has like created some difficulties for me as far as like visibility goes, because like it's part of the reason why I kind of gave up on like doing hosting and like being an on-camera personality is because I like didn't want to feel pressured to be a certain way. And when I realized that that was like a problem that I was facing in esports, that's why I started doing more diversity and inclusion consulting, because I was like, there's like a systemic problem. I knew that going into it, like there's a lot of systemic problems for trans folks in all industries. but I figured I would just start working on like making the spaces better. But like, I know for a fact like why I don't get the same views that like other FGC content creators get. I know because when I post on like, you know, Street Fighter Reddit or Tekken Reddit, like the first like 20 comments on most of my videos are about like me being trans or me being fat. So like I get it, and it sucks, but like I can't like lose sleep about it, right? So I guess that's kind of the biggest struggle to me, is that, you know, people don't understand that like you don't have to look cis normative to like be trans, right? And that is a problem for my visibility. I'm sure that like if I actually tried to look more like the way that a lot of people think a Black female should look like, that I would have had way less troubles in working in broadcast. But since I'm biracial, so I don't look Black to a lot of people. A lot of people assume I'm not Black. You know, I see Jay's face right now.
I know what you're talking about.
You know, it's led to a lot of problems for me, and I'm not going to do things to make myself fit into boxes. I spent 25 years of my life trying to like be something that I wasn't, and I'm like super over it now. At 33 years old, I'm just going to keep making this. I don't know if the people listening to our panel can see, but I'm going to make this work.
Thank you for sharing, Amanda.
Mm.
Something yeah, for me, what really bothers me is stereotypes. And it happens to me both in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. Like, because I'm Colombian, I recently joined a game industry group that was a lot of people. And I was very excitedly Colombian in that space. And I said something to that effect, and they were like, oh, so cocaine, right? And I was like, one, cocaine has a storied history on my family. People in my family have died because of the trafficking. I've lost close relatives and stuff. So it actually really hurts when people say stuff like that. And two, like, why are you assuming that my beautiful country filled with diversity and beautiful plants and music and history and culture and all of these things, the only thing you can think to say is cocaine? But it's not just them, right? It's the games we make. Like, there's so many games that it's just, hey, here's the Mexican person, that's it, here's Day of the Dead, you know, theme skin, good luck, right? And you know, Latin America is this wide range of people, wide range of subjects, wide range of history, and wide range of culture, and we're just pigeonholed into one thing. That for me is the biggest struggle across it, in the back end of gaming, in the front end of gaming, you name it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said, and I've been debating talking about it, is I'm really starting to get tired of Black characters only being from like the Caribbean, Africa, or America, as if like Black people don't exist around the world. I mean, sometimes they're from England because like they remember that like Black people live in London apparently.
And then they give them a ridiculous
like
accent.
Yeah, there's like the Valorant. There's like a character in Valorant, because I said that to a friend and they're like, "But Phoenix, he's in Valorant and he's from London," and I'm like, "Cool." Cool. And then he was like, Baptiste is from Europe. And I was like, no, Baptiste is from the Caribbean. He's Haitian, right? I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, and he was like, Doomfist. I was like, he's South African. And he was like, oh, maybe you're right. And I'm like, yeah, like people of color exist everywhere. We're not just from Asian people. Surprise, they don't just live in Asia. Black people, we don't just live in like 4 countries. You know, Muslims don't just exist in 4 countries. And like Latin American people, they don't just exist in Latin America. Like we don't, surprise, there's no like racial gate, right? Where like you can't leave certain countries. And like that's really starting to like make me mad about games, because every time I like get excited about a new character, like they're like, oh, character spoiler, and you're like, oh, it's another white person from Germany. There's non-white people in Germany. Or like another white French character. It's like, France has a really big Muslim population. Like, why is every French character white? That's not even statistically probable. Like, one of my favorite things as a comics fan is a lot of people know the Green Lantern character John Stewart, and there's a really great story about why he's Black. And it's when Neil Adams, the artist, was designing the character. he made Jon Stewart black, and they said to him, you know, well, why is he black? Like they wanted to have another white Green Lantern because this was after Hal Jordan, this was after Guy Gardner, and he said, so the first worthy person in the entire world is this white Anglo-Saxon American Air Force pilot. Cool, sure, happenstance. The next most worthy person in all of the planet Earth is a white Irish American. There is no way the third most worthy person on the planet would be white. Just none. And that stuck with me as a kid when I read that, because I was like, one, Jon Stewart's a dope character, and two, like people fought, like DC fought about him being black, and it's like, black people exist. Yeah. Like BIPOC people exist. Like we don't just exist in one place. And like maybe you can have, you know, a Muslim French character in your esports title, right? Like it doesn't have to be white people are from Europe, black people are from America and Africa and the Caribbean, so on and so forth. It's something that's like been really frustrating me lately.
I agree. I completely agree. Like as someone who has Afro-Latin heritage, you can tell by my surname probably, like it's really annoying. So Lucio really annoyed me because they gave him an American accent and they sometimes just code every black person as American. I'm like, he should speak Portuguese because he's Brazilian. And there's this lack of understanding around, you know, people from Cuba, what they look like, people from Puerto Rico, what they can look like, or people from Dominican Republic. Like Haiti, of course, is predominantly black as well, but there are other areas in Latin America that have black people, you know, part of my family. Like it's there, and people just don't do the research, and that's why I really like to consult, because I pride myself on having a global view, because I know the different people that can come from different places and where they can move to, and because I come from a metropolitan country, I have 2 backgrounds in my heritage, like, and that's why I feel like companies again need to talk to us more, because they are creating narratives without the understanding of who this character even is. But I digress. Carry on.
Sorry.
No, it was valuable. It's valuable. Especially with the Afro-Latinx portion. You know, there's so much part of Colombia which is Afro-Latinx. It's most of our music is built on Black heritage. Yeah. And for me, when people just like totally pretend it's not there, it's like, what are you doing? These people are our people. We are people together, and we cannot ignore that for the sake of whatever makes you comfortable. It just
100%
agreed entirely. Anyone else on this slide, on this topic here? Okay, cool. We'll move on. Topic 3, alignment.
Jay just left. Oh, never mind. Jay's back.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
There's sometimes a notion of what about us? Do you feel it's true that sometimes groups are forgotten, and how can we remedy that? I know it shouldn't be on us as literally the, you know, people doing the emotional labor, but there are times where people are like, wait, you know, when I run a Latinx event, they're like, wait, what about this portion? And so I think it's important on my end to remember that, again, Latinx, it's diverse as hell, right? So I try to do my due diligence to make sure that when we're running an event, when we're doing a panel, when we're doing anything, that I'm trying to make sure I include as many voices as possible. I invite as many people as possible. We try to work with as many groups as possible. So I try not to forget people, but, you know, oftentimes I come from one perspective, I come from one glance, and I have to learn. So that's my question here to you is, you know, what do we do to help remedy that situation as people of color, as BIPOCs?
I think the first thing that we have to recognize is that sometimes you just can't include everyone, right? Like for the past 3 years, I've done a Women of Esports panel, and I try so hard to, like, once I took over it 2 years ago, I try so hard to make it as like racially diverse and like cover as many different parts of esports, you know, not just players and coaches, but, you know, people who work behind the scenes, people who work in like physical health in esports. But like at some point, like you kind of have to just like, if someone says like, hey, you forgot this identity, you know, when I did my trans Lifeline Street Fighter tournament, people were like, how come there's no trans commentators? And I was like, look, I put this event together in like 12 hours. So I worked with the commentators I knew would work for free and wouldn't make me feel bad about working for free. And when I was talking to sponsors, I know that like Jay and everybody probably knows this, when you're talking to like sponsors, you need like a team put together. You can't be like, oh, I'm doing this event, but like give me like a week and I'll tell you everybody who's working on it, right? Like you gotta have those people put together. And when Cloud9 was asking me like, oh, who is involved on the broadcast, because like they gotta meet Cloud9 standards, I was like, here's 4 people, I'm done. And it's like sometimes like you just gotta give yourself permission to like not be inclusive. I think that there's, and not intentionally not inclusive, but just like it just happens. Because I think it falls a lot on us as queer people and as BIPOC people, that like we feel more burden to be way more inclusive than like our like white Caucasian peers. And you know, but like we don't see them fretting, right, about not having diverse panels, not having diverse companies. And you know, the fact, I think the self-awareness that that's a problem that we're trying to tackle, I think is the best remedy, right? It's not like we're doing it intentionally. And just like you were saying, Christina, like when people bring it up to you, you are like, oh, you're right, maybe I could have included this other person, right? I think that it's the openness and the acceptance that like, hey, it's hard, right? There's so many identities. I would love to, when I regret doing transitional combat without having more trans people involved in the broadcast side of it. But like, I live and learn, right? Now I know a lot more trans people who are commentators in the FGC. And like the next project that we're doing, we're going to be using them. But like, you just got to accept it. You go, okay, that's a mistake. That's the thing you guys want. That's what I'm going to do for you folks. Like, I'm going to make sure that the next project will be better, but like, please understand that here's the reasons why this project happened the way it was.
Yeah. You can say, okay, Steph, go
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I'm the same. Like I always say to people, I'm stretched 5 ways, and I'm trying to do the best that I can with what I do. Like I'm never trying to intentionally leave some people out. And if I have left people out or I haven't covered a base, my thing is like, okay, let me plan a way where I can bring that person on to speak for themselves. So I can utilize my platform to empower them to speak. I don't like over speaking, which is part of the reason why I only speak on what I know, because there's people out there who've been fighting for a lot of things that I can't speak to, right? So I will try and allow you to come on the platform. You have the experience, this is your lane. I'll curate a panel, you talk about it. And I'll put that in the plan, my mental plan, my strategy plan for the next year or so that I can say, you know what, I've done it and I'll continue to do it. And now I'm aware of this moving forward. But again, like you don't know what you don't know, or you can't actually do everything at the same time. It's very, very difficult. So I would just say, like Amanda said, that self-awareness is so key. And if you don't have self-awareness, that's when that disingenuous, inauthentic attempt come in. Whereas for me, I'm always trying to be authentic and genuine. So it might not happen at the time where you want it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be as genuine as I can with it, as much as I can. And I'm going to pay you for your time, because I always make sure everyone gets paid when they speak on my platform or they do a panel or something like that. That's the main thing for me, is that you get that money and the capital to put into whatever you want to buy or your home life, so that you can get paid for your experience. And I think that's how I tackle it, because I'm definitely going to leave people out. It's just the nature of time. It's just the nature of planning and events. But yeah, that's how I try to tackle it.
I think it's going from Amanda and Jay, because I 100% agree. You can't please everyone at the end of the day, and with an industry that's already left us out, we just have to do what we can to protect and to help our people first. My thing is that I will with me, I'm very unintentional and very unapologetic with what I say, and it's always been my mission to always prioritize my people first, because they haven't got the opportunities, they haven't been able to, get the things they've, been able to get because the opportunities weren't there. So my thing is prioritizing, and I, not to be rude or anything, I don't care, because, we struggled for so long trying to get to this position, and, it's now to kind of maintain that position. With my platform, it's a very mixed platform. So, there's a lot of ignorance and a lot of stereotypes and all that type of stuff. And I try to make sure that the platform that I have, a lot of men do a lot of unlearning, because, there's a lot of sexism in the games industry. So I try to make sure that I purposely made my platform, mixed, so they're able to kind of unlearn stereotypes, the ignorance, learn that there's more people that play games and it's not just a men's hobby and stuff. And also just ensuring that the space that they come into is very, very diverse, especially some of the lingo that I use or some of the, the things that I say, so people feel more welcoming. I think it's also important to, understand that you're not that you're going to make mistakes, but because it's an ongoing process, not everyone is going to be in the door straight away, but you're working towards, everyone again eating together. So I think in order to tackle that, for me personally, it's just trying to educate myself every single day. I may not be part of the LGBT community, but I know that that community is part of NASAG, and I know that they support me just as much as I support them. So I want to do everything I can to kind of, include them. And in order to do that is listening to them, seeing what I can do to create, more safer spaces, seeing where, they want their voices to be heard, as well as the Black community, as well as the, people of color, the ethnic minority, making sure that everyone, because everyone has their own different issues, but it's just about how you tackle them on. And yeah, it's my understanding.
Yeah, similarly, like, yeah, I definitely agree with the terms of like having, finite resources. Like, we can't always include everyone, and that's something that we think about a lot in DMG, because when we run long form programs, we do have a limit of how many people we can, admit to the program, because if we go over capacity, then we can't give everyone the resources they need. So if we can accept 20, like, we always want to, hey, like, we wish we could accept the 50 people that applied, but we can only accept 20, because once we go past that number, then people aren't going to be supported in the way that we want them to be.
Agreed. Anyone else? Cool. So I think we're running a little bit short on time. So there's I wanted to give people the opportunity to talk to some of the organizations that they work with or are a part of that are helpful in this space. And I really hope, just a general note to end all these topics, for companies or whoever's listening, like, the most important things I think that can be taken away here, and feel free to add in as well, everyone, is listen, right? Listen to people, be willing to admit mistakes. Like, all of us here have to do that too. And understand the emotional labor that you're asking for when you ask a person of color, or be it BIPOC person, like, what to do something, right? You're asking a lot of them. And so maybe try to like look some things up first. Like, Google is filled with tons of resources when you need anything, books, reading, etc. A ton of people are in this space trying to make those things happen, and then ask people for further information as needed. I think it's so important to remember that, like, this is a huge like learning space, and this is an opportunity to grow. And so when you look at this thing, look at it as a place to grow, look at it as a place to be better for not just yourself, but for the people around you, people who deserve that even playing field. And anyone else can add in any last notes or thoughts. I'm just going to run through all the companies that we want to talk about, or groups that we want to kind of give a little bit of a platform to. Okay, cool. So, orgs to follow. Would you like to speak to this? Yeah.
Sure. So this is my org, Black Girl Gamers. We are a community of almost 7,000 women across the globe. We are age inclusive, LGBTQI inclusive. We are, as I mentioned, global. So we have a variety of different Black women in there. We're one of the only orgs as well to do stats on our gaming experiences and put that out there in terms of Black women and what we experienced. We do events. We recently partnered with Twitch for the Black Girl Gamers Summit. Again, we've partnered with Facebook and NASAGA for Gamer Girls Night In. We've held panels. We also do internal events for our community, ones that no one else knows about, to help widen our community's reach and impact and influence. And we offer not the only thing with Black Girl Gamers is I didn't want it just to be a safe space, but a progressive one. So always moving forward, always pushing the narrative, and always being loud and strong, as I mentioned before, to impact change. And I think we've done that. I think, we've done really well in terms of what we're hoping to achieve, but there's a lot more to be done, and I'm still working on it, and I still have plans. But as I mentioned before, we have events, consulting, workshops, and content as well.
Thank you so much. Santo?
Yeah, so Things Making Games, we're a nonprofit arts organization, and we support queer and gender marginalized designer, artists, or anyone who wants to engage with games or games adjacent media. We are primarily located in Toronto, so we do service, most of our members are Toronto based. We do have members internationally as well. So we have like somewhere over, I think, 2,000 members plus. I might be getting that wrong because our membership has gone up a lot since we have been going remote. So we are holding still like online events that people can join, and we tend to also run workshops and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Latinx in Gaming. That's our 501c3 non-for-profit. We are here to elevate Latinos in the gaming industry across the board, be it they want to be content creators, they want to work in esports, they want to, I don't know, be in marketing. We are a small community, we're growing. We're always open to accepting anybody to be a part of us, just even to learn. And we're going to be doing a Hispanic Heritage Month event in October. It's filled with a bunch of really cool content creation panels. There's going to be game demos. So yeah, please check us out. And NNE Saga, if you want to speak to it.
And last but not least, Nay Saga. So I am UK's upcoming diverse and inclusive gaming and entertainment platforms. We've focused pretty much on gaming, comics, and anime, movies, entertainment, all that good stuff. Our thing is, championed again diversity and inclusion. We are a mixed platform, so men, women, non-binary, the LGBT, IKA community. We, focus on creating safe spaces for the games industry. Within the games industry, we host gaming tournaments. We partnered with Black Girl Gamers and Facebook in January for Gamer Girls Night In. We also just partnered with GameSpot for saving for the next gen. And, our thing is just making sure that we have a voice within the games, comics, and anime industry. We also do, again, tournament, community-based events, and we do a lot of D&I like workshops. And personally, for me, I'm a content creator and streamer. And, our thing is about just making sure that, again, our voices are heard, and we want to be able to change the narrative and the face of the games industry.
Absolutely. And Amanda and Jimmy, if you have any orgs that you would like to speak to, feel free, and maybe we can include slides for them later.
That's a good question. Oh wait, you know what? There's actually one sec. We actually just had on our show someone from Girls Make Games, which is a summer camp program. So I talked about that recently a little bit. I just found out and got to talk to someone from Girls Make Games, and it's this amazing summer camp for girls across the United States to learn how to design and develop their own games. Seems like an absolutely wonderful opportunity, and it's something that, of course, in the new digital age that we are in, is just provides an amazing opportunity. So Layla Shabir joined us on the download to show us the virtual camp finalists, and you can always check out their games online as well. But it seems just like an awesome initiative. I don't have anything to personally do with it, but every time I find out about a new company like this, it makes me really, really, of course, excited. And you can find them on Twitter at Girls Make Games or girlsmakegames.com.
Thank you. Amanda, do you have any orgs that you would like to speak to?
No, because Jimmy stole mine.
No.
Oh, no way. That's funny.
So there's a chapter out here, and one of my friends used to be one of their camp counselors. So
that's super cool. Thank you. Any final words before we end the panel? I just want to make sure we get everybody's final thoughts. Anything else?
Thank you for having us, first and foremost.
Yeah,
It's been an
thank you.
honor. You know, it's been an absolute honor. It's been an amazing experience speaking with all you guys, especially everyone doing something really important with the games industry. I guess a final few words is just to say that we exist. You know, we're in these spaces. If you don't allow us in these spaces, you know, we will continue to grow until you guys come knocking, and we will have the power to say no. We and it's just a thing of just you know, I'm hopeful that things change for, you know, the long term and for, you know, a permanent change as well. So yeah.
I just want to say that I'm grateful to each and every one of you for the work that you do. Like the work has to be shared, and everyone has to obviously have their lane and work in it and do the work. And I hope that we all can work together at some point and do something, even if it's on different instances, because I think that unity and that progression needs to be had, and we can definitely do it. So I really wanted to thank you all for I know how hard it can be, so I know you all deserve kudos right now. So all of you, just pat yourself on the back, treat yourself to a good meal, treat yourself to something nice, because it's not easy.
I just want to say, well, one, it's been great being on the panel. I got to meet some new people. I got to talk with people I don't usually get to talk with. But for the people listening to this panel or watching it, allow yourself to make mistakes. I think one of the things that keeps people from doing more diverse initiatives is they're afraid of making mistakes. And they're also, you know, they're like, well, I can't afford Jay, or I can't afford Stephanie, or I can't afford Amanda. So like, I guess I'll just, and I don't want to make a mistake, so I'm just not going to do anything. And it's like, no, like, you'd be surprised. Some of it, like, personally, I work on a sliding scale. So like, if you tell me what your budget really is, I'll make it work. It might not be, you know, super intense, but we'll get something done. But be willing to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. I think we forget that from childhood, right? Like, we learn from making a lot of mistakes and messing up. And when we become adults, we're like, oh no, mistakes are bad. Nope, they're learning. It's just how you learn.
They could also pay you monthly, but you know, I'm just gonna shut up.
Thank you so much for putting all this together and for everyone sharing their thoughts. I think it's really valuable to have so many different perspectives on a topic like this, especially with how broad it can get. And I guess in general, if you're a person watching this who has the resources, please give your money to these organizations and pay BIPOC for their work. Buy our games, because we are the future. Like, we are making the game industry and other industries more interesting, and without us, like, you would not have most of your entertainment.
I would also, one, thank you, everyone. Obviously, everyone had some really great points and insights. I think as gaming is still relatively a new industry compared to a lot of other ones in the world, and especially as diverse representation in industries like this is even newer and growing day by day, it's definitely something where there is no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in asking for advice. It's one of those moments in time where if you don't reach out and start to create communities and build bonds of trust, then you're just going to build a bad foundation for what you're trying to do moving forward. And I think it's important to understand that everyone that is, you know, fighting for this fight and struggling towards this together is oftentimes doing things for the literal very first time it's ever been done in the history of mankind. So don't feel bad if you don't have the answers. A lot of people don't have the answers out there, but the way that we get towards it is by combining our voices together, learning how to trust each other, and work towards a unified goal.
Thank you, everyone. This was great. Well, thank you, everyone, so much.
Love you and leave you. Have a good evening.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.